Hello and welcome to Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. This is episode 54, and I am your host Sam Gallagher, and with me, as always, is my brother Ben.
Hello and welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time to the show.
Yes, there are 53 other episodes you can view and or listen to, so we highly recommend checking those out. And you may notice if you go back and look at those, or if you're a familiar listener, that I almost messed up our intro there and forgot to the order of how I do things. So that's the operation we run here at Gondor Calls for Ale. Speaking of running things here, Ben, we've got to hear all about I don't know where I'm going with running, but will you tell me, Ben, what you're drinking for this episode?
It was right there, Sam. You could have said Gondor Calls for Ale. Speaking of ale.
Yeah, that would have been too easy. You got to work for it.
Yeah. Or just run off in the wrong direction.
Yes, yeah. Or what's running into your glass? I don't know. Something. There was a joke there. I couldn't figure it out. But, Ben, enough of the how I could have been, or how things were, or might yet come to pass. Let's hear it. What are you drinking this fine evening?
Well, for this episode, I have got myself a Horse Lord's Ale, Sam. A drink so potent that sometimes riders fall off their horse or almost fall off the horse and just happen to knock arrows out of the way while they're riding along, and saves the horse's life. So it's a pretty important brew to the horse.
I see. Very good. Very good.
And what about you, Sam? What are you drinking for this episode?
Well, you'll be shocked to know, Ben, that despite the butchery of the introduction, this is but my first drink of the evening. And I am having a mug of Moran and Mulled mead, a mead made mean for the many maggots of Mordor. Mm-hmm.
Nice. I know you've been saving that mead for an extra special occasion, Sam. I think I remember hearing about that from long ago. So
for an
have
episode that never came to pass because we drove to the wrong place.
That's right. That's what it was for. What it was for. Nice.
Which is really...
Well, I'm glad it came back.
Yeah, which is funny because I could have saved it for that same tournament a year later because I was planning to bring a similar army. So
I should find my list from what I was going to take.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, enough about upcoming future things in the future, Ben. Do you want to tell our dear listeners and our excited new viewers what we're chatting about in this episode?
Well, Sam and listener and viewers, we are going to be talking about the continuation to the Richmond Open. This is going to be the Richmond Open Part 2, where I go on to fame and glory in the Grand Tournament, and Sam fights it out with everyone else in the second breakfast tournament for 3 more games. Sam getting to play more games than me, which actually, I feel a little robbed. I like one more games, Sam. You're always like less games. Give me more games. So we're going to be talking about those 5 games, and then of course we'll go over the winners and everything.
Yeah, I will say, Ben, if it may be less games, but you get to play with more points worth of Lord of the Rings.
It's true.
In your 2 games than I do in my 3 games.
It's true, because you are only playing 500 points, and I am continuing the same 800 points that I just played in. So the top 12 of after day 1 got to move on to the second round of the GT, and I was number 12th or number 11th, just squeaking in there. I think I was number 12th, but 11 dropped out because he sort of figured out that he couldn't win. Something pretty unusual, something pretty weird would have to happen for him to have a chance of podiuming. There we go.
I will still argue with you that is not actually the case. I think you were number 12, and then number 5 dropped out, which bumped you up to 11, and number 12, and then a new number 12 stepped in. That number 12 decided to drop out because he would have to something crazy would have to happen for him to have a chance of podiuming, and then a new number 12 popped in. So
gotcha. That's right.
I believe that's how it happened. Because we talked about this in the last episode, if you've watched it or listened to it, that this was not a brand new cut to a top 12 and start a new tournament. It was cut to top 12 that get to continue the yesterday's tournament, which I understand for timing wise why it was done that way, but I think I really love this system of like if you're not in the top lot fighting for a podium, might as well give them another tournament to play for different, a different set of prizes. I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
I think if I could tweak it a little bit, it would be that it was a brand new, you do it paired. So first, the person who ended in first place plays the person who ended in 12th place, because that gives basically, it's like, congratulations, you've done really well yesterday, so you get the higher seed, but otherwise it's a brand new thing. So
yeah.
well, shall we move on into it? I don't know if you're going to repeat your army list or not, but
I hadn't planned on it, Sam.
no, I think that's fine. But I think so. We need to talk about my army list. Yes, that's right.
Tell me all about your army list, Sam.
Yeah. Well, Ben, an aptly drink. I'm drinking an aptly named drink. Something. Whatever.
How many of those have you had?
The mead is affecting me. I feel it in my fingers. Yes, I am playing the Army of Gothmog. I was super excited about this. Kind of amusingly, I was more excited about this list than the one I brought to the GT because I actually painted some models for this. So I painted up a Gothmog, and I think I finished up a Goroth, and I finished up about 5 Moran and Orcs. So we'll go through the army, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So it has Gothmog, the lieutenant of Sauron the Deceiver. He has a shield. That's it. Nothing. No Warg for Gothmog. I have 1 Orc drummer. I have a Morannon Orc with a banner, spear, and shield. I have 8 Morannon Orcs with spear and shield, and 8 Morannon Orcs with shield. And then in Warband 2, we have Goroth, captain of the Morannon, and he's got 5 Morannon Orcs with spear and shield, and 5 Morannon Orcs with shield. So this is a very interesting, I think, it's not that interesting, but a pretty interesting list as far as list design, quite, unintentionally so, but quite influenced by Ben, or a more Ben-like list where I've gone for 50% spears, which is not something I tend to do, but I think it's great for Moran and Orcs. And I went for, Ben and I had a conversation about Gothmog on a Warg versus Gothmog not on a Warg, and I decided to try him on foot.
Do you want to talk about the rationale behind that, Sam?
Yeah. I think do you want to give some of your thoughts about it, so I'm not just going on.
Yeah, I mean, basically, my thought with Sam is at 500 points is 1 more Morannon Orc, which at 800 points isn't a big deal, the cost of the Warg, but at 500 points, 1 more guy, especially because it takes you to 30 models, means you need to kill 1 more to be broken. So it does make a bit of a difference there. But I also think psychologically, when you see Gothmog on a Warg, you expect him to get something done. He's a 3-attack hero on a mount, and he's a big orc, and he's mean. He's got Master of Battle, and you think he's going to do some work and do a lot of killing. But I don't really think he's a mounted killing machine. He's only Fight 5. He's only Strength 4. He's not getting any pluses to wound. He's got his Hatred Men and everything. He's great, but I think he's a little easy to kill. He's a little bit squishy, so maybe having him on foot made him was just an interesting way to run him, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest downside of not putting him on the Warg is the Warg does increase his aura, his 12-inch. Obviously, it increases his heroic action radius. It increases the Master of Battle range, and it increases the 12-inch. The Age of Men is over, or whatever that special rule is. I think it is the Age of Men is over. But the advantage is, as you said, if you put him on a mount, I certainly, and if you're a better player, maybe you wouldn't fall into this trap, but I would certainly fall into the trap of throwing him into the like four troops on the ground, like 2 troops backed up by spears, wanting to call the heroic combat, being more disappointed when he's not like the killing machine that you're like, oh, he's my big mounted hero, so he should be a killing machine, and he's not. I also think that a lot of the time, there's sort of 2 other pieces about it. There's the people he was the only mounted model, certainly in this army, and I think in the army as a whole, I think you can put shamans on Wargs. That's it. There's no other mounted heroes, or cavalry. So people are going to be shooting. They're just going to might as well shoot my bows at Gothmog to take him off his Warg. And in that process, it's like, possible you have him taken off a Warg when you don't want him to be. and B, it's possible that they accidentally do a wound to him because they're just shooting at him, and I think people are less. It feels it's less of an obvious target to shoot at him if he's on foot. The other big thing is because of the Master of Battle. I guess this is sort of a two-part thing. People, in my experience in these 3 games, are much. Well, I haven't played them on WoG, but people were a lot worse at sort of realizing where he was because he was just in a big clump of orcs. So he was kind of more like he was more sneaky, and so people would be like, "Wow, man, well, like I really need to call this move or whatever here." But like Gothmog's right there, so I think I got more Master of Battles with him than I would have if he'd been on a WoG. I think
really
when he's on foot, he actually Master of Battle might actually happen versus on the WoG, it's just like, well, I'm not going to call the heroic action by him, and you're like, yeah. And then even if you get a Master of Battle, especially on a move off, or if you call it, because Gothmog wants to be in a big clump of orcs, he fits in a lot more places while he's on foot, so you're less likely to be like, well, I really need to get this to call this move. I call the move, and like then Gothmog's just like stuck sitting there, and like you can dismount him, but I don't know. I thought it was worth trying, and I really liked it. Actually, I thought it was quite nice.
Yeah, you're right. You definitely can dismount him, but my counter argument for Gothmog on foot is, but like, then why are you mounting him in the first place? So you can maneuver him into where he needs to be more easily on the WoG and then dismount, but the rest of the army's on foot. You've got the drum. He can get wherever he needs to get, you know?
Yeah.
Zip around on that little base.
Yeah. I guess in a bigger points game, if you're fighting on 2 flanks, it might be like, run him over here. But I've been playing around with some larger points army of Gothmog armies. I'm kind of like, I think I'm just going to keep him on foot, you know?
Nice.
And I think Moran and Orcs is certainly an interesting choice in what seems to be a little bit of the meta of high fight, because a lot of the high fight armies have low defense, or not low defense, have low strength, and so are going to be killing you on 6s. And your fight 3, so they probably paid some points for fight 5, and you're like, I'm the same. You could have saved those points and been fight 4, and you still would have the high fight on me, so I don't really care. And then if you win, I'm less likely to die.
So perhaps, Sam, what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you, is that the time of the orc has come?
Yes, Ben, I think it has, especially because a lot of those big Fight 5 armies are all men of some shape or sizes. Doesn't matter if they're evil or good. Their time is over.
Well, given that you'll get to play 3 games today, Sam, why don't you take us off with game 1? Let's find out if, in fact, the time of the orc has come.
Yes, Ben.
I didn't get the deployment map on this one. Did it on the other ones.
Well, Ben, on game 1, this was a shock of shocks. In some ways, it was probably good that you made it into the Grand Tournament Part 2, because the army you were planning to play for this was Helm Hammerhand. There were 3 other Helm Hammerhand players and I think there were only 12 or 13 people stayed to do the second breakfast tournament. So I was playing against Scott, who, as mentioned, was playing Helm Hammerhand. He had Helm and a captain. His captain was on foot, which I thought was an interesting choice. He had a handful of mounted Royal Guard and then just a bunch of infantry dudes. And we were playing Destroy the Supplies.
Nice. One of my favorite scenarios.
It is a good one.
All right. So since I failed to put the deployment map on this presentation here, I shall describe it to you.
Yes.
No box
or
for you.
You get me
I will
a box?
be describing.
I said, or could you get me a box?
No box for you. Only describing. All right. So we've got 12-inch deployment zones, nice and simple, and right along that 12-inch line, we have 3 objectives evenly spaced along that line. The game ends until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. The objective markers are, in fact, supply markers. To destroy an enemy supply marker, a model must be in base contact with the marker during the end phase of a turn, having not cast any magical powers, used a missile weapon, or been involved in a fight, or been under the effects of paralyze, immobilize, or transfix magical powers during the turn. Once a supply marker has been destroyed, remove it from play. You score 2 victory points for each supply marker that has been destroyed. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. 2 if you kill them. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If your force is unbroken, and they are broken, you instead score 2 victory points. 1 victory point if you have a banner, and 2 victory points if you have a banner and they do not.
Yes, yeah. So I was playing against a horde of Rohan with Helm. I am very familiar with the army, so in that sense, that was quite nice. We were playing on like a Dwarven Hold kind of board, and I did a bad job of taking pictures across this entire event. But in my deployment zone, there was a dwarf-like tavern building, and that was where one of my objectives ended up sitting inside. So I had this cunning plan, and then one was just in the middle with nothing, no terrain in the way or anything. It was just dead in the open, and then one was on the other side of this building. And so my cunning plan was to just make a huge brick of Moran and Orcs in the middle. We were going to just drum up. I think I maybe put some off on around this house to sort of defend my right-hand side objective. And my cunning plan, Ben, was I was going to leave two Moran and Orcs in this back, or maybe it was 4. It was 2 or 4. I think it ended up being 2 in this back building, and I was going to defend that doorway. And my plan was like, yes, he may break through and burn my other supplies, but I'm going to kill through enough of his models that I'm going to be able to burn through all of his, and he's going to have to fight through my defended doorway, and I will, at the very end of the game, I will win because I have one supply that has been defended successfully. Alas, not quite how it worked out. However, it was a cunning plan that I thought you would be proud of. So, turn 1 went to Scott.
I'm very proud of that plan, Sam.
So yeah, turn 1 goes to Scott, and I drum, obviously, and just push everyone forwards. Scott moves forwards, but not his full distance. At turn 2 goes to me, and I drum again, and I'm just sort of like shuffling around because I didn't want to just move the full drum distance and either have him not engage, which is probably what he would have done, just stood there and throw throwing spears, or get the charges in and throw all the throwing spears. So I kind of like shuffled a little bit. And I believe Scott kind of just was like, well, I'll move forwards enough so that we get some combats the next turn. And so he gets 1 kill this turn with a throwing spear. So turn 3 goes to Scott as well. And basically this is it. This is the turn. I call a move with Goroth because I think I wanted, basically, he was kind of stuck between this little minecart and a little building, and if I can jam some Moran and Orcs into him, I can, at least I'm not taking all of these throwing spears. He then can't, like, he could back away his other half of his army, but I'm fine with that. But no, so I call this move. Scott fully engages. I should say my two Orcs in the back are defending their doorway. And my other group of, I think it's about 5 or 6 Morannons are kind of like holding this objective, and they start moving forwards because most of Scott's cavalry is on that side. And so I'm like, I'll just start moving them towards the line because Helm is wherever he goes, I'm going to need reinforcements, basically. So Helm charges in. He charges into, I believe now, if you're watching on YouTube, this is the turn that we're actually looking at. Helm charges into 1 Moran and Orc. Causes free heroic combat. Gothmog, of course, Masters of Battles it.
Nice.
And then Goroth also calls a combat.
Okay.
I can't remember. Did I? Alas, I did. I haven't. I have. This is my first time playing this army for a long time, and I certainly since we've had a podcast, so I didn't actually write down on this one when I called the time of the Orc. I don't think it was this turn. But this is an absolutely brutal turn. I believe Helm's combat goes first, and he just moves. He moves like further away, and just moves into. There's a clump of unengaged Moran and Orcs moves into those. So Helm kills like 3 models this turn. He does have to spend a point of might to win one of the fights. So Helm spent 1 from his store, which is pretty good. Goroth combat goes off, and he just absolutely pulverizes whoever he's in, because he's wounding regular Rohan warriors on 2s because he's two-handed. He's strength 5, two-handed burly, +1 to wound because of hatred men.
Oh, geez. So is it +2 to wound and strength 5 at the defense 5 troops? That's hysterical.
Yeah. So it's 3s against Royal Guard. Which is pretty great. So this was an absolute. And then Gothmog's combat, I think he wins. I think he's only fighting one model, and he goes into another model and kills them as well. I think he's fighting Royal Guard, so it could have gone like not great for him. But it's an absolutely bloody turn. I kill 8 models and lose 7.
Whew.
And that is the name of this game. It is just like whoever loses, or like when combat happens, it just is absolutely brutal. So next turn goes to Scott as well. Gothmog calls a move. Helm uses his free move because I want to try and grab Helm. But the move goes to Scott. Helm charges into, I believe he charges into my banner in this orc here, and then grabs whoever he can. Goroth calls a combat, as does Helm, and then Gothmog Masters of Battles that. Again, the combat goes to Helm, and my whole plan was Goroth was gonna, because you can just see him in this picture, he's fighting like one dude and he's within charge range of Helm. He was gonna pulverize that dude, then go into Helm. They'd have the Tide fight, and if Helm lost, that's not a fight he wants to lose. And I think this is the turn I call the Time of the Orc, because Helm decides not to go into Gothmog after he wins this fight and kills my banner. Because if they would Tide fight, if Gothmog wins, he's got 3 attacks needing 5s, re-rolling all failed wounds into him. So Helm decides to just go and kill some regular orcs.
Surely it's needing 4s, no? Because Gothmog's hatred men +1 to wound.
Yeah, he's strength 4, Helm's defense 7, so it's 6.
Oh, I keep forgetting Helm's D7. Yeah. Jeez, okay.
Yeah, if he had a shield, he would be glorious. But I think Helm goes into my drum here, or somebody kills my drum. Dies this turn. Goroth fails to win his heroic combat anyway, but it doesn't super matter. It was his last point of might, which was a bit of a shame. I lose 7 models and kill 4, so it wasn't a great Time of the Orc. But again, I think 4 of these were Helm. I started tracking at some point Helm's kills. Turn 5 goes to me. This time there's no moves called. It looks like there were no moves called. I think I get Goroth into his captain. I get Gothmog into Helm and some other orcs and basically tie him up. Helm, of course, uses his Master of Battle for a free strike, so Gothmog Masters of Battles to copy the strike. I think, unfortunately, Gothmog strikes to like a 7 and Helm goes to 10. I do spend a point of Gothmog's might to go to the 6. So I rolled a 5 and Helm had rolled a 5 as well, so Helm had to spend the point, and so Helm wins the fight. Doesn't kill Gothmog, importantly. I think he rolls pretty badly. He only does he only has 3 attacks, I guess, because I charge. So he puts a wound on Gothmog, and I believe I burn his fate and still take a wound. So he may have taken 2 wounds. So Gothmog's out of fate, down to I think he's still got 2 might at this point in time, and has taken a wound.
Odds are, Sam, that you only got wounded once and just failed that fate. That's what my money's on. Yeah,
it's definitely possible. But importantly, Goroth absolutely crunches the Rohan captain, who's at full stats. He's just like, glunk, and the 2 wounds, and Scott rolled like the 1 for his fate, so he couldn't even use his 2 remaining might to up it. So that was pretty exciting. Turn 6 goes to me. Helm uses a free move. So uses his Mighty Hero for the move. Gothmog Masters of Battle it. The move, I believe, goes to me again.
Nice.
So I tie up his stuff. I put Gothmog and a couple of Morannon orcs into Helm. Helm uses a point of might, which I believe is his last one, on a defense. So Gothmog obviously just copies it just in case it goes against him. And I win the fight, Ben. And Helm is trapped. I need 6s to wound him. And I said, don't worry about it, because watch his Gothmog 6 attacks. Watch these six sixes coming your way. Bloop, rolled it, and it was 3 sixes, Ben. It
Ooh.
was 3 whole sixes. And would you like to know why that was?
I surely would, Sam. Tell me.
Oh, Ben, it's because I was rolling those Baron of Dice dice. That's right,
No, it
Ben, the
was.
official sponsor of Gondor Calls for Ale, once again coming in clutch with his perfectly balanced dice that are guaranteed by Sam and Ben Gallagher. I assume I'm
Right.
lumping in there to roll sixes at least some of the time. They're perfectly balanced, hand-swirled resin dice. They're the official dice of many a tournament and many a national team. And if you would like some of these dice that have over 3,000 unique designs available to you, Ben, if you would like to get your hands on one or more of those 3,000 unique designs, you can go to the Baron of Dice website. There will be a link in the description of the episode wherever you are listening to it. And if you want a little discount on those beautifully, perfectly balanced dice, you can use our discount code, which is also in the description of wherever you're listening to this podcast. But it is capital G, capital C, capital A to get yourself a beautiful discount on some wonderful dice that, in this specific instance, rolled 3 sixes. And then Scott obviously wasn't using the Baron of dice because he failed his fate and Helm died. And it was awesome.
Saucy, Sam. Gotta love it. Gothmog clubbing that helm.
Unfortunately,
I would not have thought that was going to be the outcome of this game.
Unfortunately, I made a foolish mistake at some point in time and charged my defending orcs away from their doorway they were defending. But I was too slow and didn't stop the guy from burning my objective, and then was once again too slow. He sent another guy off who got to the other objective. So he ended up burning 2 of my objectives. And this ended up being a major loss. It was 4-9.
Wow.
Which I think it was actually 8-3. I believe we put in the painted score for that.
Gotcha.
For that
Okay.
score. But it was an awesome game. I had so much fun. It was so satisfying killing Helm through a heroic defense. Gothmog and Goroth were machines, and I mean, regular Moran and Orcs killing regular Rohan warriors on 4s is amazing. It's so, and then they're like hitting you back, needing 6s, and you're just like,
Yeah, the Gothmog Legendary Legion is looking more and more tasty in the current meta. There's a lot of men running around, seeing a lot of Easterlings, Black Numenorians, regular Numenorians, Helm Hammerhand, Rohan. There's a lot of men out there.
Easterlings. Did you say Easterlings?
I did say Easterlings, but yeah, same again. They're out there.
Yeah, they're out there, and their time is in fact over, Ben. So this was a great game. I really didn't expect to kill Helm. And the funny thing is, right, and this is easy to say about any big hero, but if Helm hadn't been in this game, it would have been so one-sided. Or if he didn't get the free heroic combats. Like, if he was just using Mighty Hero, like, because he was killing, like, 3 to 4 Moran and Orcs a turn.
Sure,
And that was it. Like, it was essentially on those turns that he killed, like, 7, 6, 5 models. Over 50% of them were Helm, and the rest of it was, like, 3 kills from Rohan warriors, and most of mine were, like, 8 kills from, one of them was from Gothmog, and the rest of them were from Moran and Orcs, and it was just absolute butchery. But, Ben, enough about the most interesting tournament on the day, into the lame, less interesting tournaments. I joke. Into your game 4 with the Riders of Theoden. How did it go? What mission were you playing? And, what was it like battling your way from the bottom of the top 12?
All right, Sam. Well, as you said, I was playing I was spot number 11. I was, of course, playing against number 12, who was Chris, and he brought an allied force of the Halls of Thranduil and Survivors of Lake Town. We've got Thranduil, we've got Bard, we've got Alfred, we've got Percy, and of course the 2 daughters. Bard once again losing the father of the water year for bringing his children to battle. With Sigrid and Tilda in the army as well. I think he had just short. I think he had 46 models, so just short of outnumbering me 2-1.
Okay.
And we were playing to the death.
Ooh. To the death, eh? That's like scenario 5? No. 4. No.
Scenario 2, I
3.
think.
2. It is in fact scenario 2 to the death.
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
how I
then.
remember that.
To the death. If, of course, you're viewing this, you can see the beautiful deployment zones and the mandatory hills you're required to put on this table. I joke, they are just depicted with hills in the deployment zone, but it's a 12-inch up deployment zone. We have a game that lasts until one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. And we have some victory points, man. We score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. If you kill the enemy leader instead, you score 3. Pretty big swing on that one. I think it's the only one that you score 3 for killing, in fact. You score 3 victory points if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, instead you score 5. You score 1 victory points for having at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have at least 1 banner and your opponent has none, instead you score 2. And you score 2 victory points for the enemy force if you reduce the enemy force to 25% of its starting number. So, going into this with a victory point surplus, yeah? You have a banner and Chris does not?
Yeah, that didn't occur to me until we were counting up victory points, Sam. It should have occurred to me. But I completely did not register that I was up 2 victory points. It would have drastically changed how I played this game because he had, I think, a total of 14 archers plus Bard, so potentially 17 shots. And as you can see on the board, we're playing on sort of a generic fantasy board. We've got a couple of houses with some fields. We decided that the inside of the fields was going to be rough ground. We've got a couple of wood scattered around. So, and there's a big shooting lane down the center of this board that I really did not want to charge my cavalry into.
Yeah.
So when we're deploying, basically I deployed Theoden in the middle of the board, right up front. I told Chris, Theoden's leading from the front. He's not afraid of your bows. Look, he's the furthest forward of my whole army right now. So Chris deploys, and then I deployed Daewine next to Theoden, and Chris deploys another warband. And then I deployed Gambling next to Theoden. And basically I wanted to make him think that what I was going to do was run up the board, and I wanted him to put his archers down. And then once he deployed his archers, I put my cavalry on the opposite flank of the rest of, so it's just Eowyn and Eomer really on the other flank. Because I was either going to run around a house to the right or a house to the left and try and keep the buildings between me and the bows, and then ideally get his army between me and the bows so that I wasn't going to hit any shooting until I charged into him. So he's deployed his archers, so that leaves me free to put down Eomer and Eowyn on the other flank. And we get right into the first turn. I'm going to run through this game fairly quickly because although we played 7 turns, we only got 2 turns of actual combat. So the first turn, basically, Theoden, Daewine, and Gambling, they go riding off to my right, and Eowyn and Eomer go charging forwards, and we keep all of Theoden's warband both physically out of range of the bows if they're in line of sight. They're like 27.5 inches away, so there's no way the bows can move and shoot me. And Eomer's warband he's got a bunch of cover between him and the bows, so no shooting casualties this turn. All right, turn 2 goes to me, and I call a heroic march with Gambling. Basically, the objective here is to have Theoden's warband try and catch up to Eomer's warband as we round the house in this deployment zone. And we all ride forwards again and manage to keep the terrain between us and the archers. And again, we take no shooting casualties this turn. So turn 3 goes to Chris, and he decides that Alfred's time has come. Alfred is going to spend all 3 of his will, and he's going to give 1 will to Bard, 1 might to Bard, and 1 might to each of his daughters, basically to use them for heroic moves, which I thought was an interesting idea, because the daughters have no heroic stats to steal.
Can you do that? Can you separate out? I know he can give them to him, but
can you do it? Oh, separate it out all in one turn?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Well, he does it on turn 3, so he definitely could have done it over the first 3 turns.
I will be man on phone while you talk, and I look it up.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Sam, he doesn't. I forget exactly how this rule works, but whatever he needs to roll that he steals Bard's might, he steals Bard's might.
Nice. It's a 1.
And gives 1 point of might to both Sigrid and Tilda. So Alfred has a point of might. Sigrid and Tilda have now got a point of might, and Bard is down to 2 might. So I was like, that's perfect. Perfect. I'll take that every time. I think I made a bit of a mistake here. I should have called another march with Gambling. My thought was that I would have enough time. I should have measured it out, because basically I was moving each warband forwards full, and I needed Theoden's warband to be gaining on Eomer and Eowyn every turn, because Chris hadn't really done a lot of maneuvering at this point. His army was pretty much stationary. So my plan of coming around this building and having his battle line between me and the archers, so there was going to be no shooting, was working out pretty well. I should have called another march with gambling here. I didn't call it. And I do finally take some shooting casualties through the trees. I take 2 casualties this turn. Turn 4 goes to me. I call the second march with gambling. We ride some more around the building. And I take 1 more shooting casualty. Turn 5 goes to me. I call a third march with gambling. So I already called 3 marches with gambling. I could have called 4 at this point because he gives himself might back. So that turn where I was like, no, I'll save his might. It's pointless. Could have spent the might. Would have been fine. Call another march and basically get into this position where I'm in the corner of the board around this building and take 1 more shooting casualty. And then we get into the important turn. Last turn, I set up so that I had a bunch of charges ready to go. And in the turn, he's got like one turn of shooting at me, and he opens fire into my army. It's not the turn that we're seeing now; it's the next turn. So if you look at this image and imagine the horses have all moved up 10 inches, we're within charge range of his battle line, multiple waves of horses, and he sets up and he goes to take all the in the ways and shoot my heroes, but misses a lot of the in the ways, and essentially what happens is he takes my entire front rank of Royal Guard off their horses. So now my front rank of guys are 10 inches away, and they're blocking the riders behind them because they're infantry bases. They're not going to get into charge range. And then what happens is Chris wins the next priority. So I decide to call a move. I wish I hadn't. I wish I had just waited another turn and just eaten the shooting and repositioned. Instead, I call a heroic move with Mary, and Eowyn can't get into combat. She's got to go like round these Royal Guard, move up to a point where enough of my force can charge in, and I basically get a really bad charge this turn. Eomer charges into Bard. Theoden and Daewine both charge into this one elf, and I didn't see that there was a hole for Thranduil to move through the woods and go charging into Theoden, and I get a handful of my Royal Guard to engage as well. My plan had been for Theoden and Daewine to get a free heroic combat from Daewine, and then go wreck some more guys, some elves. A lot of the elves, he'd castled up in the woods next to this building, but the elves' bases were just poking out of the woods so I could get my cavalry charge on them. He could have been just a little bit further back. So anyway, we get this really bad charge. In the combat phase, Theoden is fighting Thranduil, calls a heroic strike. Bard and Eomer also heroic strike off, and Thranduil, as he charges into Theoden, blows the crown that knocks me all down, and Eomer resists it on a sweet 6. Thranduil throws it. I just threw all of Eomer's will. I was like, he's got free will. Here we go, and we got the will back, so that was fine. Eomer resisted that, no problem.
Did you call death this turn?
No. I decided, because I had such a shit charge, I was like, I'm going to get a better charge. I'll get a better charge next time, and call death was my plan. So we get all these strike-offs. Thranduil, and in the we'll do the Eomer and Bard strike. So Bard strikes up to a 2, and Eomer gets to a 3. So Eomer is higher fight. No, Eomer got the 4. Eomer was higher fight than Bard. And Eomer, I'd make sure that Eomer was in Gambling's banner range, so I've got 3 dice in the banner reroll. Eomer rolled 2 2s and a 1, and then rerolled into another 2.
Nice.
So he'd lost the fight. He was surrounded by elves and Bard, and has to spend all 3 of his fate to stay on his horse and stay alive, but is still mounted and still alive. There he is, fighting Bard, doing his best. Elsewhere in the turn, I lose 4 of my Royal Guard and only kill 2 of Chris's models. One of them is the free heroic combat from Daewine. Daewine actually has to spend a point of might to win this heroic combat, goes charging into another elf to peel him out of combat with Theoden, loses that fight, and has to spend a point of fate to stay on his horse.
Oof.
And in the Theoden versus Thranduil fight, at this point, Sam, someone had just come over and told me that Bernard Hill, the actor who played Theoden, had just died. I had just heard the news as I'm rolling the dice for this fight with Theoden. So Theoden rolls his strike dice and gets that sweet Horse Lord 6 and strikes up to fight 10. Thranduil gets a 2, and Theoden outfights Thranduil, wins the fight, has to spend 2 points of might to win the fight. I think I got a 4 high even with my gambling banner nearby, but wins the fight against Thranduil and is getting his cavalry bonus and takes 2 points of fate off of Thranduil. So that was pretty fantastic. And the clock is running out. Despite all that I've done is basically move up this game, Chris taking shots. We are running out of time. The clock is running out. This is going to be the last turn. So turn 7, priority goes to Chris. I call another heroic move with Mary, and Percy calls a counter move, as does Sigrid and Tilda. Sigrid calls the counter move. And Percy's move goes first. He's basically able to cancel my move and re-engage all my heroes. So no cavalry charge for me. And so this is the turn we call death. Theoden's calling a strike. Eomer's calling a strike. Daewon's getting a free heroic combat. Gamling's calling a combat, and Eowyn is getting a free heroic combat. So we do some heroic combats first. Daewon's heroic combat goes off successfully. He kills another elf, peels another elf out of combat with Theoden. So it is just... Oh no, he charges into Thranduil. I set myself up for failure here, Sam. So now it's Theoden and Daewon fighting Thranduil. Eowyn fails her heroic combat. Nothing happens there. Gamling wins his heroic combat. Kills a couple guys. Nice job there. Eomer strikes up to a 9. Bard strikes up to a 10. But this time Bard is the one who flubs the roll, and Eomer has to spend a point of might to get to that 6, and we once again get just a stalemate where nothing happens. I think I took Bard off his horse, maybe. And now we get the epic fight against Theoden with Thranduil, Theoden, and Daewon all duking it out. And of course, I didn't realize this. Thranduil on foot with the 2 swords. I knew he got +1 fight, but if he's fighting more than one model, he also gets +1 attacks. So now Thranduil's got 4 attacks. I've had to move through the woodland terrain. I've got 4 attacks. We're tied dice. Thranduil's got a spear support. I've got a banner. So we're tied dice. We strike off. Theoden gets to the 10. Thranduil also gets to the 10. We both get the 6. The tied fight goes to Thranduil on the Elven Blade roll. And Thranduil puts 1 wound through onto Theoden. I'm sorry, he puts 2 wounds through onto Theoden. So I've got 1 point of fate. Haven't spent it on the Horse Lord yet. No might. Theoden's out of might at this point. He's called a strike and had to spend 2 points of might to win that fight last turn. He's completely out of might. So I need to root. The game is riding on this fate roll. If Theoden dies, I'm going to lose this game. And I got it, Sam. I passed the fate on a 4. Yes. Theoden passes fate, takes a wound, and I won this game 1 point to 3. Oh, no, 1 point to 2. 1 point to 2.
So for 2 points to 1 because you won.
Yeah, because I had the banner. And I didn't realize that I was up victory points until we were counting it up. And Gamling was still alive at the end of the game. So I definitely didn't play this terribly well. My battle plan, I think, was fairly sound, although if I'd had the banner, I'd have just hidden behind the building like a real asshole and made him come to me. Yeah. I realized that from the beginning. But, so I think other than that, my battle plan was fairly sound, except I had a really bad charge turn, and I should have just seen that it was going to be bad and not called the move, or called the move and disengaged. I think Chris played this game really well, and probably should have won one more turn, and it was going to go his way.
Well, tense game, but you won the first round, right? Yep. And I think importantly, some of the top tables had some draws. Was that the case?
Yes, that was indeed the case. Table 1 was a mirror match of Galadriel and the last alliance of Galadriel and Numenor and Gwaihir the Windlord mirror match.
Most themed of army.
Yeah, they got a draw, which is brilliant. I told them at the beginning of the day, I was like, all right, guys, you guys just got to go there and get a bunch of ties so as the guys at the bottom can move up. And hysterically, they got a tie on round 1.
Perfect. Well, should we move forwards into the games where we, myself, the viewer, and the listener are actually excited to hear about?
Yes, that's right. Yes, tell us, Sam. Tell us about the second breakfast tournament.
More about Sam. We want to hear more about Sam. That's what they've often said. Well, Ben, for the second breakfast, round 2, our games were much shorter. Were an hour and a half versus your
2 hours.
Yeah, so we had half an hour less, which was great for 500 points. I did halfway through this game, like you guys started your round 2, and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be stuck here for so long because Ben's going to... I spaced out and thought you were playing 3 games as well, and then I realized that wasn't the case, and I was like, whew. Anyway, so enough about the background of this, Ben. On to round 2. I was playing James, who was playing the Blackgate Opens. Ooh. So it was no men to kill this time, and one of the orcs were going to have quite the time. Their time was going to come. He had a super troll chief and a regular troll chief, and a 20-something model. So he had some Moran and orc. He sort of had a smattering of orcs, Moran and orcs, some with shield, some without, kind of thing. And we ended up playing a Clash by Moonlight.
A little midnight reconnaissance or meeting between Gothmog and a troll. All right, Clash by Moonlight. We've got some nice, simple 12-inch deployment zones here, and a game that ends until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader, 2 if you kill them, 3 victory points for breaking the enemy force, 5 if they are broken and you are not, 1 victory point if you have at least 1 hero left at the end of the game. If you have at least 1 hero left alive and have killed more hero models than your opponent, you instead score 3 victory points. If you have at least 1 hero remaining and your opponent has none, then you instead score 5 victory points. And special rules, the infamous Dark of the Night. Due to reduced visibility, models cannot be targeted by shooting, magical powers, or special abilities over 12 inches away. However, as it is much harder to avoid a shot in the dark, all shooting attacks gain a bonus of +1 to wound when rolling to wound.
Yeah. This special rule meant nothing in this game because neither of us had any bows, magic, or anything. It was fantastic.
That's amazing.
So I think I got to veto second here.
Okay.
I don't remember what the other missions in this pool are, but yeah. Do you wanna look it up because
it's Fog of War, Clash by Moonlight, and Assassination.
So I think he got rid of Assassination. I think
he should veto Fog of War, surely.
Maybe he did veto Fog of War. Either way, it came down to a choice of one of those two. I think he got rid of Assassination.
Surely you want to veto Assassination. I mean, I don't know what he vetoed, but
yeah. Well, so my thought on picking Clash by Moonlight, as much as anything, was that 5-point swing for break. I was like, yeah. I'm pretty convinced I can play this in such a way that I can break him, remain unbroken, and I'm going to ignore, and I'm going to keep my characters alive and ignore his character and stay away from his. Yeah, and then I'm going to win on break. It was my whole plan.
I think that's a great plan. He's got those big bases on the trolls, and you've just got little infantry heroes who just got to maneuver around the trolls and beat other orcs to death, which is what, I mean, Gothmog and Goroth love beating up on troops.
Yeah. So we will get into it, Ben. Do you want to move us along? So yeah, this was the other part of this game, is we were playing on the infamous Argonath board. So it's a very cool looking board, but miserable to play on. Yeah. So we had a conversation about it, and they said it was open ground because. Screw it, man. Like it is. You can't really see from this picture, but it is dead in the center of the board. And as you see, if you're looking at these pictures, we play the entire game fighting in the water. And I would have, he could have made the argument that like, if he'd been like, well, I would like it to be some level of water because my trolls ignore it. I would have been like, fine, but you know what? I'm not gonna walk up to it. I'm gonna like. I'll either stand on the edge, but I'm not coming to you, man. Like you
stand on the edge and claim the high ground.
Right. So we determined for the ease of the game, we would just ignore it. It's still a pain in the butt because you're playing on this like pretty steep sloping rocks. I did very bad jobs of taking pictures, so this is many turns into the game. But you have
examples. It proves your point, though. Look, there's a lying down banner there because you can't.
Oh, there's so many. There's just like half of the battle line ended up lying down. So. Turn 1 goes to me. I, of course, drum. Move my full inches up. So I'm standing, if we go back to that previous picture, this is where it is. I'm standing at the top of the slope looking down. And he also just moves full 6 inches up. Turn 2 goes to James. And this is actually pretty good because he decides to just move his full 6 inches up. Which I was like, I wouldn't have moved. I would have stayed there and made him come to me either way. But he decided to move up. And I did some measuring. And I was able to get basically my entire battle line into his entire shield wall. And still stay out of, because both of the trolls, if you're listening, they're on the flanks of his army. And stay out of combat with the trolls. So that's what we do, Ben. We charge in. My entire line goes in. Gothmog goes in. Goroth goes in. Turn 2, I call Time of the Orc. I'm like, this is it, man. This is the turn. I got to pick all of the fights. I've got spear supports on everyone. I just need this. I need to kill this turn. So Goroth calls a heroic combat. He kills a couple models because I'm just like, I just want to use these rerolls. I want to crank through these models. I kill 9 models
Wow.
and only lose 1.
Wow. Wow. So
So
he's got 20 odd models. So you're
I
already up
think I
by a
needed to
couple.
kill. I think I needed to kill 14 to break him. I think he had 27. So I was
Phew.
like 5 models away after that turn.
Wow.
Or maybe it was. Maybe I needed to kill 15 and I was 6 away. But so turn 2 goes to James. Gothmog decides to call a move. The Super Troll Chief also calls the move. This is closer to where it's at. And the move, I'm not sure who. I think the move goes to me. Or maybe the move goes to him. But basically, I line sort of relock. He gets his Troll Chief is wrapping around this, or the Super Troll Chief is wrapping around the side. He calls a combat. He's outside of 6 of Gothmog at this point in time, which is a shame because Gothmog doesn't get his Master of Battle. So the Troll's combat goes off, and he wins his fight. He loses his fight, and then Banner rerolls into the 6. He then picks up a model and hurls it, and it goes through like a big clump of dudes. I think he maybe kills like one of my models and like one of his, but it just makes it a total pain because like everyone's falling over. But we do get some combats here. I kill another 5 models, and he kills 5 this turn. Turn 4 goes to James as well. This time Guroth calls a move because he's pretty close to that Troll Chief, and nobody counter moves, and I'm able to. I'm basically my whole army is now within 6 inches of each of my heroes, and I'm able to tag each troll with like 1 model. Lines relock. This is not a particularly killy turn. I only kill 2 models, but I only lose 1. And again, I think the Super Troll fighting like the one dude doesn't get the 6. I get the 6, and then Banner rerolls into the 6. That was quite the story of this game with his big trolls. So turn 5 also goes to James. He calls a move, or I call a move with Guroth because at this point he's broken, and he wants to use the Super Troll's fearless standfast, basically, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
Super Troll calls a move. He uses his last point of might to call a move. Gothmog Master of Battles it. The move goes to me. I'm able to tag the Super Troll. I think I also tag the other troll, which I probably shouldn't have. I could have potentially just let it run away, but whatever.
I mean, it's got courage 3, courage 4, and 1 point of will, and maybe a might point of might left.
Yeah, so it probably would have stuck around. But basically, rather than let a bunch of his army run away, I just re-engage. The other troll calls a combat, kills some models. Gothmog, I think, also uses his Master of Battle to get the combat. He spends a point of might to kill an orc. I think this was the last orc I needed to kill to quarter him, and I kill 6 models this turn and only lose 3. And that was the end of the game, and it ended up being a major victory, 7-2. Essentially, I achieved what I set out to do, which was break him without being broken.
And shatter him as well, apparently.
Yeah. Well, that was to end the game as quickly as possible. And I don't remember what are the other score victory points in this game?
Leader kill, break, shatter, and I just read it out loud and it's already gone. Oh, it's just Clash by Moonlight. You're trying to kill heroes.
We each had a hero alive. That's what it was. So we had heroes alive. And so it would have been 6-1, but with the painting score it was 7-2.
Nice.
So yeah, that was it. A major victory. Very nice. All right, Ben, into your second and final game for the day.
All right. So, due to more ties and more upsets on the top table and such, I was actually battling for 3rd place here. I was playing on table 3, and I was once again facing Alisha. So my tournament began with Alisha. It began with Galadriel Denethor, Treebeard, and Madril, and it would end with Denethor, Galadriel, Madril, and Treebeard as well, Sam. So we were once again playing each other, same armies. We were on an Osgiliath board this time, and we were playing Burn the Supplies.
Well, shall I quickly go through Destroy the Supplies again, even though we've heard it this episode?
Sure. Yeah,
Well,
go for it.
If you're viewing, this time Ben has successfully managed to put the deployment zones up on the slide. So you've got, if you're listening, I will still describe them. So you've got 12-inch up deployment zones. You've got 3 objectives across your deployment line, 1 in the middle and 1 on either side, 12 inches apart. The game lasts until a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. If you score 2 victory points for each supply marker you destroy. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. If you kill them instead, you score 2. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining, and if you have at least 1 banner and your opponent has none, instead you score 2. There we go. Destroying supplies.
All right, so we deploy. We've got these Osgiliath ruins. We deploy our forces, and Alisher essentially has Treebeard on one of his supply markers, and his other 2 supply markers are between a set of buildings, and he's got a nice spear wall backed up by some bows in front of each of his objectives. And my objectives are just in my deployment zone because I am riding forwards, and I sort of split up my forces, but I was really just going to push the flank away from Treebeard and leave a handful of guys behind to defend my supplies for as long as possible. So I basically decided to ride off. I deployed spread out so that he wouldn't know where I was going to go as, he deployed. And then basically decided this time I'm going to rush to my left flank. We're going to rush with everyone left. Try and keep some buildings in between us and the archers. Do our best there. We do take 2 shooting casualties this turn, and Galadriel, of course, channels Blinding Light. I do take turn 1 priority. Turn 2 also goes to me, and we do some more maneuvering. Galadriel fails to command one of my guys out of cover, but I take some more casualties, and I've taken a couple of dismounted guys as well. And if you look at this picture, Sam, you can see that big Osgiliath building, not the one with the tower on top of it, but the other one on the other flank has a little ladder on my side of the building. So my dismounts, who had been shot off their horses, rushed over to the ladder, and my cunning plan here was that they were going to climb up the building, and they were going to throw spears ineffectively at Treebeard all game. But really what they were there to do is to loiter near Treebeard's objective so that he couldn't leave. He had to stay there and defend his objective, because I had a couple of guys in this building who, as soon as he left, they were going to climb down another ladder and go burn the supplies. Meanwhile, the rest of my force is going all the way around the left-hand flank. So this guy moves up to throw a spear at Treebeard, and Treebeard charges into him. And I'm, defending the high ground, defending a barricade. Treebeard's tall enough to fight me. I'm on the second story of a building, and Treebeard wins the fight and rips him apart across the barricade. And I was like, there goes plan A. So we're getting into turn 4, and I'm still maneuvering. I didn't take any casualties on turn 3. Gamling calls a heroic march to get the rest of that warband caught up. And I managed to inflict 1 shooting casualty with some through the blinding light this turn, but take another 3 casualties this turn. And Galadriel commands one of my guys forwards. Madril surrounds him and calls a heroic combat, kills that guy. All right, so turn 5 goes to me, and we charge in with the heroes. I did an absolutely miserable job of taking pictures of this game, so I'm just going to go back to Treebeard burning some supply markers later in the game. Go back to this picture, because really that's all that happened. As far as I didn't take very many pictures. A lot that happened though. So I charge into combat, and I've engaged the spear wall that's in front of the supply marker to my leftmost flank. It's backed up by guards of the Galadriel court. So all of my heroes who go into combat are calling heroic strikes. Eomer's calling a heroic strike. Theoden's calling a heroic strike. Eowyn's calling a heroic. Actually, Eowyn called a heroic combat. She was only fighting 1 warrior of Minas Tirith. And Daewyn, of course, calls a free heroic combat, because sometimes you just got to risk it. And I love Daewyn's free heroic combat. He does work for me. We only managed to kill 3 of Alisher's models, though, and lose another 3 in return, taking some more shooting casualties and some more Royal Guard getting killed in combat. Theoden won his combat, struck up really well, killed the warrior of Minas Tirith he was fighting. That's fine. All right, turn 6, priority goes to me, and Madril calls a move. So Éomer counter moves, but Madril wins the move off. So Alisher just locks down my shield wall, and Galadriel Gambling, and moves him 5 inches away, so his banner is no longer in effect. I decide to call Death this turn. It was not a great turn to call Death, but I was basically, all of my heroes were engaged fighting Fight 6 elves, and they were all trapped, and I just wanted the free strikes. I didn't have my banner, so I wanted to free strike. So everyone strikes. Everyone except Éomer Éomer and Éowyn both lose their fights. Éomer has to spend a point of might and loses 3 points of fate, but doesn't take any wounds. Éowyn is okay, Sam, but Mary is stabbed by an elf or warrior of Minas Tirith this turn and laid low, is slain. Which gets us into turn 7, where Alisher wins priority. I call a move with Gambling. Galadriel counter moves, and once again, that move off goes to Alisher, and we re-engage. And that's essentially the story of this game. I'm going to run through it fairly quickly. I'm looking at my score sheets. It looks like there's a lot going on, but basically, on this one flank, my cavalry charge is stalled. My heroes are bottlenecked between this big tower and this building, and are fighting through, his whole, basically the most of his army. The rest of his forces that was defending the middle objective starts funneling towards that flank objective, leaving Denethor and like 2 guys on that objective. And my heroes are basically calling strikes every single turn. Often they win the fight, and maybe they kill a warrior of Minas Tirith, maybe they don't, but they're still surrounded by, we're still basically burning might just to kill a warrior of Minas Tirith, which feels bad because I'm surrounded and trapped, and he's got the fight 6. I do send some of my Royal Guard around the back of that objective and start peeling some of the guys off, and thinning down the guys on that objective. But I was just I was just losing the grinding war. We were basically killing even number of models every turn. He'd kill 3, I'd kill 3, which is a bad trade for the Riders of Theoden. I need to be killing more. I got a couple of great opportunities. I had 3 Royal Guard filling the gap behind his battle line, and a 4th one who couldn't go anywhere to score that flank objective, so I just sent him round to the center objective, which is defended by Denethor and 2 guys. And I threw, I think over a couple of turns, I got to throw 2 spears at Denethor just in the shooting phase, and then 2 spears charging into him. And this time I did not manage to get the lucky kill and did not manage to inflict any casualties on Denethor. But I got those chances. I managed to make those chances happen, and it just didn't come through for me. Meanwhile, Treebeard has, now that the guys in the building, I think the other guy in the building got shot by the elf archers later on in the game. I backed him off a Treebeard. He got shot down. So now Treebeard's got nothing better to do but to slowly walk forwards, and eventually manages to burn one of my supply markers, and then picks up, I think it's the hobbits that actually burn the supply marker, and then he picks up the hobbits. I had a couple of guys in the backfield. That's right. I had a couple of guys in the backfield. Treebeard moves in, calls a heroic combat. Next turn, the hobbits burn the supply marker. Treebeard moves on, and the next turn is able to burn another supply marker. And this one ends on game condition. Alisher manages to shatter me, and it is a 9-2 loss with the painting score. But a really, really fun game. I called 1, 2, 3, 4 moves and didn't win any of them. So I don't want to say that it would have, I would have won the game, but I feel that if I'd won, if my initial charge had gone a bit better, if I'd won a couple of those move offs, I may have at least burned one of his supply markers, and it would have been still a major defeat, but I think a closer score. It was a really, really fun game though. I had an absolute blast with this one.
Excellent. Well, disappointing not to win it and take that 3rd place, but
Yeah, it's true. But I can say that the only player to defeat me at this tournament was Alisher, so that feels good too.
Just did it twice.
Yeah, well, we just did it twice. Yeah.
Still ended with a winning record, right? 3-2.
Yes, sir.
Not bad. Not bad.
All right, Sam. Well, onwards. Enough of my game 2 into your game 3, for which I did the wrong objectives. Look, I thought you played burn the supplies in your game 3 as well, so I put that deployment zone. And I think you've actually played to the death.
I did play to the death, but I would like it noted by our listener and or viewer that Ben got all of the deployments correct for his and fucked up 2 of mine. So
That's right. We just don't care about your event, Sam.
Yeah. Yes. Well, yeah, so I was playing Steven, who was also playing Helm's Guard. He also had Helm and a captain. This captain, I believe, was on a horse, though. And
Nice.
as we said, I was playing to the death.
All right, so you just ignore the objectives in this image. It's just a sweet 12-inch deployment zone onto the death. There are no objectives into the death, and we have a game that ends at the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. You score 1 victory point for wounding the enemy leader, 3 if you kill them, 3 victory point if the enemy force is broken, 5 if they are broken and you are not, 1 victory point if you have a banner, 2 victory points if you have a banner and they don't, and 2 victory points if the enemy force is reduced to 25% of its starting number. I love ending a tournament on this game, Sam. It's just so, on this scenario, it's just, there's no second guessing. It's very straightforward.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, and this was a good one. Steven's a good bud, a patron of the show, so thank you for that. And this, I knew this was going to be win or lose. This was going to be a really fun game.
Mm-hmm.
So turn one goes to him, and he moves up a little bit, and I drum and just fling my guys forwards. You can see we're sort of playing on a rocky board with a bit of a ruin thing in the middle and a few trees around. And I was kind of like, maybe we'll do battle on this big central ruin thing. Turn 2 goes to me, and I think I just say screw it. We'll move up. I think this picture is actually from around turn 2. So I just move up. I keep everyone. I think I keep it back enough to where he can't get throwing spears in. Maybe I don't, but all right, definitely keep it back to where he can't charge. Except I put a couple of orcs who were within 10 of Helm, and I was kind of like, if you want to throw Helm in there, man, like, bring it on. You'll kill those 2 orcs, but then he's going to be stranded up here. Which he did. He threw Helm in, called the combat, and I was like, okay. Killed the 2 orcs, and then moved them 10 inches directly away, and I was like, yep, that was the smart thing to do, and something I literally never do with Helm, so well played, sir. Well played.
Yo-yo.
But yeah, so then turn 3 goes to Steven, and what he decides to do here is he's like, oh, well, I'm kind of a skirmish force. I'm going to play the skirmish game, and backs away. To which I sat there, and I took my time considering this, Ben. I took my time considering this, because I went, if this was a game that I was playing not at the second breakfast tournament, not after being 1-1, I would strongly consider drumming and running away. So I think I called the... Did I call the drum? No, I don't think I did. Because...
Yeah.
Yeah, so
If he charged
I
in,
would
you'd
have
have been-
strongly considered just backing up 6 inches and then drumming the next turn and just like being like, all right, man, now you have to come. You can take... He also had like 2 riders with bows, which is a consideration of just being like, I can run away all game, but eventually he's going to do, like maybe he does some wounds with those bows. And anyway, I was like, nah, this is like, whatever, man. Like, this is for fun. Who cares? So I just jam my whole army down his throat again. I think Helm is far enough, but I do stay out of 10 of Helm because I'm not going to sacrifice another 2 orcs.
No,
So
unless-
turn 4 goes to me, and I think this time I'm still far enough away, but I just say I think I drum, and I just like put myself within an inch of his whole line. I'm like, he's going to get the throwing spears. He's hopefully not going to get too many kills with them, and we'll kind of see. And this doesn't go super well for me. Helm gets into combat. He calls a heroic combat. I think he's far enough away from Gothmog, or Gothmog's not even in combat. That's right, so it doesn't matter to call the combat. And Helm kills another 2 models, but then backs away rather than going into another 2. So I was like, well, it's not too bad. But unfortunately, I lose 7 models and only kill 1 in return. So this was not a great one for me. Turn 5 goes to me, and his Rohan captain calls a move. He is within... No, he's not within range of Gothmog. I'm looking at it. So Goroth calls the move. The move goes to me, which was great. I just slam everyone forwards, including Gothmog gets into combat. And on the bounce back, Helm gets into combat. This turn I call Time of the Orc, because again, I was just like, Gothmog really could die pretty soon. Like, Helm's kind of floating around him, and I have to call it while he's on the board. And this is a turn where I've got to dictate as many. I'm now, like, outnumbered, which was a shame because I just, like, I've lost nine models and only killed one, and we were pretty close in model count to start with. So it's not ideal, but I'm going to use it on the most ideal turn as I can. Helm causes free combat. Gothmog gets a free combat. The combat, I don't know who it goes to, but it doesn't matter. Helm kills the 2 orcs he's fighting and then goes and kills another 2 orcs, so he's killed 4 this turn. But so I lose, but I only lose a total of 5. So again, if it wasn't for Helm, they would have only killed like 1 model. I kill 6 Rohan this turn, which was not bad. I think the other nice thing about Time of the Orc is that this picture is like very close to the end of the game. The other nice thing about Time of the Orc is that it does make characters like Helm really not want to go into Gothmog that turn, because if they lose, again, he needs 5s re-rolling. Like, that's not bad. So that was turn 5. Turn 6 goes to Steven. I call a move with Gothmog, because Gothmog's pretty close to... I think, let's go back to the previous picture, because it's more accurate of where we're looking. So the move goes to me. I'm able to... I believe I put Gothmog and a couple orcs into Helm, and we basically... Our lines relock. Not much happens this turn. He kills 2 models. I lose 1. Guroth has to spend a point of might to win his fight. That's probably the 1 model I kill. Helm calls a defense while fighting Gothmog. So Gothmog copies it for free. Whoever it goes to, it doesn't matter. Nothing really happens there. Turn 7 also goes against me. So Steven gets it. Gothmog calls another move, which means he's down to 1 might. Helm calls the free move. Again, the move goes to me. Sort of jam in on people. Again, not much has happened. We're much closer to the end of the game. Like, I lose a model, don't kill anyone, and it's looking pretty grim for me. The previous turn where I charged Gothmog into Helm, I was kind of like expecting this game to be over the next turn. So I was like,
sure,
might as well throw him in, but I only lose 1 model. Apparently I don't kill anyone here either. Turn 8 goes to me, and this time, and Helm uses his free... Is that right? Is this what happens? Okay, so... I'm not. I have done some bad notes here, but towards the end of the game, essentially what happens is there's a point where I get Gothmog into Helm.
Okay.
Helm calls a defense. Gothmog copies the defense, and maybe it was on turn 6, and I win the fight, and this time Helm not. Is he trapped again? He might be trapped. I don't remember. He's trapped because I have 10 dice again. I don't know. Anyway, I pick up my dice from Gothmog and just like slam another 2 6s, and now I need like 1 more 6 to potentially kill Helm. I don't get it, which is a shame. But Helm just takes the 2 wounds. Then a couple turns later, Helm finally gets to move, and he runs away from Gothmog and goes into 2 basic Morannon orcs. This turn, Steven charges my banner, who's kind of just like loitering in the middle. You can go to the last picture because we're about around there. And he kills him with the throwing spear while I'm in the bathroom, which is highly suspicious. No, not really. He was like, I was like, just move. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Like, whatever. I trust you. And he's like, and anyway, so I was like, well, Chris, the TO, is over there. I'll ask him to go like stand if that makes you feel better. Like, I really don't care, man. Like, if you feel the need to tell me you killed one of my models with a throwing spear because you need to win that badly, like, that's cool. Which, that is not the kind of person he is at all, so I really didn't. But, hilariously, it worked out. It ended up being really great, because this Rohan guy with a throwing spear kills my banner, who is in the way. He was, like, in the way of him getting into Gothmog. So he kills the banner with the throwing spear and gets into Gothmog.
Amazing.
Which, yeah, hilarious. It was like the one throwing spear kill he got that turn too. So that was fine. But Helm calls... so Helm's fighting these two Morannon orcs. I win the fight and stab Helm. And I think Stephen rolls the 1. I think he had 2 might left in his store and rolled the 1. And Helm's just like, bloop, gone. And suddenly we get to this point where, like, I've got Gothmog and Guroth and not very many Morannon orcs. I'm, like, 2 away from being quartered. And, like, all of a sudden, it seems like, oh, my God, I think you may have just won that. I think you may have just won that. And I'm like, no, you still got it. You still got it. We play, like, another turn. I lose my last orc, and I'm broken. Or I'm quartered and the game ends. So we start adding up victory points, and I look at it. I'm like, oh, I did not realize that leader kill is worth 3. This may have gone much better than I thought it did for me. So it ended up being a real. I'm going to pull up the score because it's like that. I don't know. It was really, really close, and it was super fun. So we played to the death. So I got 3 points for killing Helm, and Gothmog wasn't wounded because Gothmog on foot is a beast. We were both broken. He ended up breaking. I broke him by 1 model, so we each got 3 for that. So it was 6-3 in my favor. And then this is it, Ben. That sneaky Rohan throwing spear killing my banner, and he still had his banner alive because Guroth just like couldn't quite kill it. So he got 2 victory points for that, and I got 0. So then it was 6-5.
And he got the shatter.
And then I got shattered. So it was 6-7.
Wow, that's
as
close.
we both had fully painted armies, it was 7-8. It was super close, super awesome because kind of 2 ridiculous things happened. Like killing Helm probably shouldn't have happened in this. I mean, it was definitely possible. And then the throwing spear kill on my banner was like pretty glorious. And I don't think I realized that banner points were in this one until later, because I would have tried a lot harder to kill that banner. But yeah, it was an awesome game, especially because what ended up happening is for most of this game, I was like, oh boy, this is like really one-sided. Like, I really think it was about turn 4. I was like, well, in the next turn or so, I'm going to be shattered. It's going to be over. I'll put Gothmog in the helm. We'll have that leader showdown, like whatever. And then just all of the killing, just like Helm was tied up, and then suddenly it was like, the regular Rohan guys were killing 1, maybe 2 models a turn, and I was so slowly chipping back at them. And like if the game had lasted, if I hadn't lost a model or so, if the game had lasted a few more turns, I do think I would have won it, because this was essentially, I think, the last turn of the game where I've got Guroth in the middle, a couple Morannon orcs, and then Gothmog, and it's like banners right there, and it just it was
one
awesome.
orc survive.
Yeah, it was a super good game, really fun, and I 10 out of 10 would play again, and I absolutely loved playing this Legendary Legion. And I will also give a shout out that you should check out, if you haven't already, the Now for Wrath Gaming on YouTube. That's Andrew, the Tabletop Admiral, and Stephen, who I just played, have awesome video battle reports, and it's definitely worth checking out. A great event with the army of Gothmog. I killed 2 for 2 for Helm Hammerhands killed. So
hilarious.
The time of man is over, I tell you what. All right, well, this has been a longer one, and certainly a later one than perhaps anticipated for our recording, Ben. So should we go into some placings, get through it, and then close out this episode?
Yes, let's move into that. Shall I give us the placements for the old GT first, Sam?
Sounds good.
All right, so in third place, we have my opponent from round 3 and round 1, Alisha. In second place, we have Stephen, also known as the Dragon Horde. And in first place, we have Tyler, who took first place with Witch King and Angmar, beating off an eagle for like a 2-1 victory on the top table. So
it was Witch King and Angmar? Was it?
Witch King and Suladan, sorry.
Okay,
Witch King and Suladan. Witch King and Suladan beating off one of the Gwaihirs for like a 2-1 victory on table 1 in the last round. So nicely done there. And in the second breakfast, everyone's favorite tournament, the tournament that we're all talking about, Sam, in third place, we have none other than your friendly rival, Mr. Cody of
He
Psychic
probably
Mini Painting.
he probably cheated. It's the only way. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, he well deserved, Cody. This time you finish above me, but next time I'll finish above you.
And in second place, we've got Tom, who I believe was one of the Helm Hammerhand players.
He sure was. I think he was also the one who dropped out of the GT after being very excited to qualify because he wanted to try and win in second breakfast. So,
Well, he did it. He sure did. And in first place, we have Mr. Scott, who is the other Helm Hammerhand player and Sam's opponent from round one.
yeah. Yes.
So 2 Helms and the top of the tables at 500 points. Not surprised.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good army for sure. And good swept the podium for the second breakfast because Cody was playing the halls of Thranduil.
Oh yeah, look at that.
But do you have any of the other coolly awarded trophies?
I do not have any of the
Alright.
other coolly awarded trophies. These are the only ones he posted.
Well, the ones that I remember are Cody won Life of the Party, which I don't know who he bribed or what, but no, I'm kidding. A well-deserved award there for Cody. So he was Life of the Party. I believe Stephen Dromfield was favorite army, player voted favorite army, which I think a lovely looking army, but I think people will consider this a painting vote because I certainly did not vote for him because he was playing the Gwaihir, Isildur, and Galadriel, and I was like, that is not a favorite army. It looks beautiful. If we were talking best painted, yes, that would be a vote. But so I think I voted for. I definitely put Alisher on there because he was bringing Treebeard, and that I appreciated.
Nice. There were 4 Treebeards.
Yes, yeah, which is awesome. And what else do I remember? I think you won Voyager coming from the furthest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
distance
Having travelled
up
the
in
furthest.
Maine.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to. Rob gives out so many. I can't.
I think
Oh,
I was going to say it was Tom, but it wasn't Tom. Who's Boromir took home best painted good? Someone's Boromir took home best
I'm
painted
not
good
sure.
model.
Because Tom got best painted evil with a warg of some sort.
That's right. That's right.
And Ted got Challenger of Champions because he lost on table 1. And Lurtz, my Lurtz got best converted model, so that was cool,
saucy.
Satisfactory. Yeah, and there were a plethora of other trophies that alas we do not have. So rather than trying to rack our brains live, well, not live for you, but live for us, I think we will end it there and just say I thought it was a fantastic tournament.
Oh,
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I absolutely love a Rob Loader event. I love the GT and second breakfast format. Phenomenal. Great event. Definitely, I think this was, after trying for 3 years, we finally made it to the Richmond Open, and it was well worth attending.
100%, absolutely an event worth making it to, and I really like this second breakfast format. I really hope it gets picked up by other people. New tournament format for 2 days.
All right, I think, Ben, the last thing we have to discuss is where we can be found next, and this episode should be out on the 14th of June. So I believe the next event that we have on the books at that point is the Nova Open.
I do believe so.
Is, of course, Durham's Bane on, I think it's the
14th of July?
14th of July. That's down in Durham, North Carolina. I believe that's 800 points. It's a fantastic event. Well, I assume this one will be fantastic. All their other ones have been. So if you're in that area, definitely worth checking it out. Alas, I don't think either of us will be able to make that one. But otherwise, there will be plenty of more episodes, and as more events are added to the calendar, I'm sure Ben and I will be attending more of them.
Absolutely.
Anything you would like to add, or should we close her on up?
No, I think this has been an episode, Sam. Let's call this one a wrap.
Yeah, I guess I will remember to do what you usually do, which is we'd like to thank our fantastic Patreons. We really truly appreciate all your support. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to consider becoming a Patreon, you can get some excellent custom Baron of Dice that, as I've said, are guaranteed to roll sixes at least some of the time. And help us create more episodes, more content, go to more events. It's awesome. We appreciate all the support, Patreon or otherwise. And of course, give this, if you're watching on YouTube, give this video a like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you're listening, even if you're not much of a YouTube viewer and you want to go give at least me, I assume Ben doesn't care as much, a bit of an ego boost, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. We definitely appreciate all of that.
Absolutely. Until next time,
we will be back. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no microbubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.